Welcome back to the Crossout, guys, and this is the ultimate guide on how to build something like this. A build that is good in every way. So let's get started with the tips and tricks and the tutorial. So first off, hide your explosives and know which parts are explosives. For example, fuel barrel, fuel tank, ammo boxes, all this stuff. Such as a generator. It says when destroyed explodes and deals 350 damage in 4-meter radius. Best way to hide your explosives is usually under the cabin. Not in the middle necessarily, because you can hit them, well, not through the tracks, but it's a good place usually. Or you can try to hide them behind the cabin and then just put lots of armor or enough armor at the back in here. Also know the durability of the explosives. For example, these ammo boxes, they're pretty strong, as you can see, 323. But this generator, this is very weak, only 34 structure. So if this generator is somewhere like outside, like here, and someone hits the generator, that's gonna blow up both of the ammo boxes. So this is why you should always hide the weaker parts in between the stronger parts. And here's what happens if you do it wrong. What just happened is that this ammo box in here caused a chain reaction which blew up everything, took out the frames like this. Next up, if you're gonna use fuel barrels and fuel tanks to get fuel, then you need to know that fuel barrels do not stack. Having more than one of these on your build, like these, it's not gonna make you get more fuel. And also the fuel tanks, they do not stack either. However, one fuel barrel plus one fuel tank equals 15 fuel per match. 5 from barrel, 10 from tank, so you can stack these two, but there is no point having more than one of each. Next up we have frames, the generic build. Connect as many frames to the cabin as possible. So this is our cabin in here. We can press F, that's the default button to see the mount points. Then we go with the frame. Connect as many to the frame as possible. For example, you could do something like this, and then put like 2 in here. And maybe also like 2 in the middle somewhere. And then everything else you build, then connect to these frames in here. And the reason for that is because the frames can only be held in place by the cabin or another frame. So if I put the part in here, and then I will connect one part in here, as you can see, this part in here makes contact with both of the frames and the cabin. But if I remove this frame, as you can see, this frame will fall out. This part doesn't hold the frame. So if you have a build like this, and then this frame in here falls out, then as you can see, all this red stuff will also fall out, because these frames are not held in place by these parts. As you can see, these parts are making contact with the cabin, and then this part in here makes contact with these, but this one makes only contact with the frames, and therefore everything would fall out. And here's what happens if you do it wrong. For example, if you have this kind of setup, then this is a bad way to put the frames, because if this frame falls out, then everything falls out. So a better way is to turn them this way. So if one of the frames falls out, then you still have the other wheels. And as extra security, you can also add 2 small pieces in here. So this way, even if this frame in here gets shot out, then you only lose one track, and you still have this small piece holding this track in here. So always as many pieces to the cabin as possible. And same thing goes about the parts, that connect as many parts to other parts as possible. Don't just put like, let's say, one part in here, or like some people, they put like one part in here, and then they connect like 2 cannons on top in here. So if this part gets shot off, you're gonna lose both of your cannons. And these cannons have a lot more structure than this single part in here. And you can be sure if someone hits you in the cannons, this part will fall off and bye bye cannons. So when you start building, make sure that all your parts make contact with other parts. Like see, don't make it like only contact this part, because if you take this off, then this also falls off. It doesn't even need to get shot. So instead, put this part right here. So if you take this away, nothing happens. If you take this away, you only lose the track, but well, that's normal. And then the next part, you could put it, instead of putting it like this one, and like this one, you could put two smaller parts side by side like this instead. And also make sure that if you put smaller parts on top of the bigger parts, then also make sure they make contact. Because as you can see, this part behind here, it sticks out, and if someone shoots in here and this falls off, then this is completely useless. So don't build it like this. You have to make sure that this part makes contact with something else somewhere, so it doesn't instantly fall off, like so. So if someone shoots out this part, then this will still remain. Or alternative is to put this part behind this, and then put the bigger part in front instead. So they first have to get through the outer layer of the armor to get to the inner layer of the armor, and then you have exposed cabin. And also know your parts. For example, these grills, and also well, it's also a grill. These are really good because damage passes through. It says wireframe gun mount can be shot through. And the reason why this has so high power score is because this part is extremely strong. It's very difficult to take it out. You can shoot through it. If someone shoots at it, then the cabin behind it takes also damage. Of course, not all the damage goes through, but even though it has only durability 51, if you will have another part, so if you have this part in front of the other parts and two walls behind it, or like one, and if you shoot at it, I'll just try to aim straight at it. See, one of the parts behind it fell off while this is still standing. And let's see if I can take the other one out too. See? Whoa! What the hell? But see, this part is still standing after taking out two of the other parts. See, and it's still standing. You see how strong these gun mounts are? So that's why they are even called gun mounts, because you can put your guns on it, and if someone tries to take out this, then, well, it's not gonna really happen. The gun will fall first. Definitely this one will fall first before this one. So it's really good idea to use these to connect to other structures. For example, on hovers, if you need to like hide the hovers, you can put this part like so. So it's almost impossible to take out this part, so they have to get, you know, through the outer layer of armor. Again, you could put like this, and this single part holding both of these, because these are extremely difficult to shoot out. So if you want to mount your guns on the side somewhere, then these parts should always make contact with the cabin. That's the best way to mount the guns, either like behind in here, or on the side, or if you want more room, you can put them on the top in here, like so. So these kind of parts and these two, these are the best kind of parts to mount the guns on top. And here's what happens if you do it wrong. And next up, about weapons, hide your weapons. For example, if you're going with hammerfalls, don't just put them like on top of your cabin, because that's very easy to shoot it out. Always put it like behind the cabin or behind something. So you can see this is one level lower than the cabin, and then you can hide it behind the cabin in here. So if someone shoots you from the front, then they rather hit the cabin than the shotgun. I mean, it is possible to take it out, but it's a lot more difficult. So for example, for equalizers, this will be a really good setup. See these plows in front, because they can take a lot of damage. And also these parts in here to hold the plows, also by one more piece. Well, this is not necessary, but it's just a security measure. You could technically take these two out, but I just put them anyway. I'm talking about the front. See, they're like hidden behind the cabin. So let me demonstrate. Just look at the damage, how much, if you aim straight at the gun. See, it does come off, but see the yellow damage to the cabin. And let's try the other one. And now, and if they are not hidden behind the cabin, then it should be a lot easier to take them out. So let's try this. See, one fell off, other one fell off, and well, the other one fell off. These are not the best sharpshooting weapons, the equalizers, but even the more reason you should put the plows in front. If someone else has equalizers, then they can't just mow them down. Next up, choice of weapons. For example, do not mix long and close range weapons or weapons with different aiming angles. For example, don't mix cannons and shotguns or like a Reaper and a Retcher, and you get the idea. And I'll show you why. So here we have a really bad combo, a Retcher and a Reaper. See, I'm aiming straight at the Leviathan. The Reaper hits it, but look where the Retcher shoots at. See? So you have to shoot somewhere in there to hit the target even a little bit higher with a Retcher. Well, it's a little bit over now, okay. Haven't played with it a long time, but you get the idea, see? It's a bit unstable, see? Not unstable, but aim. And look where the Reaper shoots, obviously. So this is why it's a bad combo. From a certain range, yeah, you can shoot. If you go to a certain range, see, the Retcher does shoot in the same place and you can shoot them at the same time. But this is only from this range. Any longer or any closer, well, closer, yeah, it kinda works actually, but any longer and it's pretty much useless combo. And if by some reason you just have to mix them together, then make sure to click on here and make sure that they're on different buttons so you don't waste your ammo or just, you know, throw around the Retchers while you're shooting the Reaper. So definitely map them on different buttons. For example, if you're going to mix two different cannons with different aiming angles, then make sure you have them on different buttons. It's very important and I'll show you exactly why. So if you're from the range and you zoom in and you shoot both cannons at the same time, you saw where one of the cannons hit in there and the other one went pretty much in the ground and didn't even hit the target. And I'm gonna shoot a little bit longer distance. You see the bullet drop, the shell drop difference between these cannons? The Executioner flies a lot slower. And Tsunami flies a lot faster. Therefore the shell drop is a lot less. So definitely have them on separate buttons and note angles. For example, with Tsunami I can hit from here. But with Executioner I have to aim somewhere in there to be able to hit the target. See? I know the angles, but if you don't, then come to the test drive. Try to measure the angles, how many, you know, how high you have to aim, and then, you know, map the buttons and then do battle. And another thing about weapons, know the perks that the weapons have. All the epic, the purple ones, and also all the legendary ones, these yellow ones, and the relic weapons, they all have a special perk. And you just hover over it and it says, the further the target, the higher the damage. For every 100 meters, damage increases by 45%. So with these whirlwinds, you wanna be as far from the target as possible. So if you go into a kissing contest with these kind of weapons, then they just lose their effectiveness. So make sure to, you know, look at every, you know, weapon perk, what they have. For example, this one, a direct hit speeds up the following shots reloading by 0.5 seconds. And for example, Spark reduces the target's movement speed and weapon reload speed by 50%. So it's like a kind of a support weapon. So make sure you know all of them before you start making your build. So next up we have mobility options, such as like wheels, legs, tracks, and also the new augers now. Before you even start your build, make sure you know what you actually want. Do you want your build to be like so-called hit and run? For hit and run, do not use heavy things such as like legs or like heavy tracks. These kind of tracks, they are pretty fast. As you can see, it shows you max speed, see? Wheels, they don't limit the max speed, but tracks do. See, max speed, it limits the max speed. And this is good to know. If you look at the cabin, look at the cabin's max speed, see where the line is, and then look at the tracks. Aha, these are same, which means these tracks are not gonna limit this cabin, which means you can use these tracks, but if you look at these ones, As you can see, it's a little bit more than 4 bars from the end, but the cabin is only 2.5. So these tracks will limit your speed. So if you want hit and run build, get rid of them. And the second thing, the more wheels you have mounted, it even says so, each mounted wheel reduces cabin power. The more wheels you have, the slower the cabin will be. Not the max speed, but the power. And that's where the engines come in play. As you can see, we have some engine choices in here, and if you hover over it, it tells you the power 25% and max speed 20%. So it gives you like power 25%, which means you can put more wheels on it. Or with Colossus, it gives you 50%, but almost no max speed, so that's good for, you know, heavier builds, to have more wheels without losing the acceleration. So you have to make sure that the engine and the wheels, they are, you know, how to say, in harmony, or whatever the word I'm looking for, that you know exactly which wheels and which engine to put. And also every wheel has its own perk. For example, these lunar wheels, they are extremely good on sand, while other wheels, they are kinda crappy on sand. Also tracks are pretty good on sand. However, these lunar wheels, they are really bad on tarmac. They are practical like driving on ice. So you might wanna mix like few wheels, like put maybe like 2 of those and maybe 2 of those. So you have grip, you know, on any kind of surface. Or with tracks, you don't really have to worry about that. But that's why tracks are epic parts and these are just rare parts. That's the difference. And so, if you decide to go with this kind of hit and run build, then you definitely want some kind of weapons that are easy to use from close range, so you can sneak up and just shoot, such as shotguns. So, for example, hammerfalls, you could put like 2 hammerfalls on it, and that's pretty good, you know, with this kind of, you know, speed and stuff, because you have to get close with shotguns, you can't really, you know, shoot them from long range, and this is where this speed comes in handy. Look how fast this thing is. You can just go up to a target, boom, 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 and just get out of there. However, if you're gonna go with something heavy, like mammoth cannon, then it's best to have more armor and less, you know, mobility, because this cannon can take, you know, several hits. If you shoot them straight into the cannon, say it doesn't even budge, I think I can take about 3 shots. But if one shot hits your cabin, then you're almost, you know, dead. It's already burning, as you can see. So one more shot and that's it, you're gone. So this is what I call it, know your build. So there is no point having almost no armor with a mammoth. If you want to build a mammoth build, then you should go with some bigger cabin, less mobility and more armor. For example, this is a very bad idea. Because these shotguns, they don't have much health at all, and if someone gets close to you, they just do this, and your shotgun is gone, then they do this, and you have no weapons, and you're absolutely useless, and you're just driving around like with all this armor, you're being slow and absolutely useless. So there's no point having like this kind of armor build, and weapons that can be shot off instantly. For this kind of build, I mean for these kind of weapons, you definitely want the fast build. So this build is good for mammoths, because this has a lot of armor. Not a lot, but it's very well armored. The tracks, they protect you from the hits from the side, so you can't shoot out the frame or the ammo packs or anything like this. See, it can take a punch. And the mammoths are very difficult to take out. See, even a full hit right into the mammoth, it doesn't take it off. Maybe the second charged one, yeah, that takes it. But now if I hit this one, then that should still take it. See, the track came off after like 3rd hit or something like this, and this one is still holding, and now it's gone. So that's the idea, that if you're gonna have lots of armor and slow build, then you definitely need the weapons that can also take the punch. So the best way to so-called know your build is to, for example, sort them by durability. You don't have to sort them, you can just look on the market. And as you can see, the mammoth has the most durability, so it's the best weapon for tanking. Well, the tsunami is also good for tanking, but tsunami is also good from long range. So you can have kinda, you know, in between builds, something that is a little bit faster if you need to, you know, take off and hide. but also a little bit armor, so it's kinda in between. So Tsunami, yeah, that's kinda okay. Fatmans, they're also very good for like lower power score tanking. They're really good with armor, as you can see, 700, almost as good as Tsunami. Mandrake, well, that's kinda, you know, useless from close range anyway, so I would recommend have almost no armor at all, just enough to protect your ammo boxes if you have them, and then have a fast build to allow you, you know, be able to run away. But for example, weapons like Firebox, these actually explode, these barrels on it. See, this is here, is like a fuel barrel. If you shoot at this one, then it will explode. And this is if you do it wrong. So the generic idea about know your build is to have weapons in balance with your armor and speed. So if you have close range weapons such as like Firebox, then you definitely need a fast build. If you have medium range weapons such as like machine guns, then you can have a slow build, but it would be recommended to have little bit more speed than that. And if you're using like super heavy weapons such as like mammoths, tsunamis, or like even fatmans, then you definitely want lots of armor so you can just, you know, take it. Like having hurricanes on a slow build is absolutely useless, because from close range you are absolutely useless, you can't do anything, and hurricanes are literally like, you know, how to say, hide and seek kind of, you know, weapons. You just hide, you see the enemy, you pop out, you shoot the hurricanes, and you go back to hiding. There is no point having this slow ass build, just driving around in the middle of the battlefield. Few hits, boop, your hurricane is off. As you can see, the durability is only 175, that's not much at all. Few shotgun shots and they are off, and again, you are absolutely useless. And also having a melee weapon on a slow build is pretty much useless. I mean, sure, yeah, you can grind someone with this thing, but I mean, no one's gonna ram straight into your harvester. If some fast build gets on your side, they're gonna shoot off your weapons, and then you can never catch up with them. So instead, take it off and use that energy on something better. Such as an engine, which helps you reload. This engine has a weapon and missile reload speed increased by 20%. This engine is a lot more useful to reload these hurricanes than having a harvester. But as I said, slow build with hurricanes is a bad idea on its own, but that's not the point. The point here is that don't have a harvester on a slow build. Like the mammoths, if you're gonna put the harvester in here, that's absolutely useless. Instead have the engine on it, which helps you reload the cannons. And the second really useful thing is radar detector. I will show it shortly what's so good about this. It's a lot better to have engine, radar detector, and maybe like cloak on it, rather than having the harvester. So the radar detector, it can detect enemies on the map, and let me show you the range. The enemies are somewhere in there, I think. If I'll go a little bit further, just slowly drive and drive. There we go, that's the range. So if I reverse a little bit out, then it will disappear. So that's the range. It's about half the map, and the other one should pop up any second now in here. There we go. So that's the range you can see the enemies from. This is extremely useful. A lot of people don't even know that you can open the map, which brings me to the next thing. Learn to use the map. If you don't have any enemies straight, you know, shooting at you, let's say you're behind this hill in there, right there where I'm looking at, then open the map and just look. Sometimes there are like, let's say 5 enemies in here, then like 2 somewhere in the base, and then 1 is like sneaking all the way behind, and at this point in here, or maybe this point, the enemy cloaks, which means the dot is gonna disappear. He comes up to you and rams you right in the bum hole, and you're gonna be dead. So that's why you should always use the map, open it every now and then. If you're not in, you know, straight firefight, if you're not like shooting straight at enemies, always open it for a second and just look. Because if enemy cloaks, then you can clearly see that the enemy is behind you. You can either turn around. If you have machine guns, you can just spray them down, maybe uncloak them if you're lucky. If not, take evasive maneuvers, because the cloak only lasts 10 seconds, so you can just, you know, count in head and try to avoid them. So that's why the radar detector is so important. And we also have a powerful radar. Even though the range is a lot more, it's 600 meters for the default. The difference is that the first thing, the radar detector takes 1 energy. It's a lot more durable as this one, and it's also heavier. However, this one doesn't take energy. But the other bad side about this is that it can't detect enemies through the walls. As you can see, I'm in the range, but you can't see anything. As soon as I poke myself from the corner, you can see that they both appeared. So with this kind of radar, the enemies have to be in visual range in order for them to pop up. So with this kind of radar, it's good to go on top of the hill or something to be able to see them. But radar detector, it detects the enemies through the walls and through everything. You can always see them. See, I'm behind this bump in here, and the cabin doesn't have visual range. If you look from this angle, the cabin's angle, then you can't see them. So the cabin must have visual range with the enemy for them to pop up on the map. So that's the difference. So to sum up the know your build step, the best way to explain this is that you must have a perfect balance between the wheels, cabin and weapons. Mobility is the better word. So to explain this better, if someone attacks your build, then you shouldn't have any weak place. Like if someone shoots you in the tracks, they can't take out your tracks in one hit. If someone shoots you into the weapons, like so, they can't take out your weapon. And if someone attacks you from the front and decides to shoot you straight into the armor, then that can take a punch too. So you must have a perfect balance in between all three: the cabin, the weapons and the mobility. So if someone wants to destroy your build, they must do equal amount of damage to either one of the three, either the tracks, the cabin or the weapons. Because if you will put, like I explained, some weak weapons on a build like this, then those weapons, they will just fall off instantly and you will be useless. And also if you don't have enough structure, then someone can just, you know, get a good aim at your cabin, and that's what's gonna happen. And then there are some smaller things to mention. For example, radiators, coolers, and which is better for which gun. That's why I have a shotgun and the equalizer in here. And also steering wheels. As you can see, this is a very bad combination. I did it on purpose. Look at the turning angle if I turn around like this. Just look visually how big the circle is, see? So if you're gonna put the wheels like this, you have 4 steering wheels and 4 normal wheels. Then a better option to put them is to remove this, put this in here, and steering wheel in there. So get rid of that, put this in there and this in there. So middle ones are non-steering and these ones are steering, the front and back. And this should turn a lot better than it turned before, so let's see. Yeah, look at the turning angle now, look at that. It's almost in one place. See how small that circle is? So always know your wheels, how you're gonna put them and place them. You don't need that many non-steering wheels anyway for the tonnage, but that's just to show you if you do need them. And radiators are better for the machine guns. For example, the equalizer, look how long it can shoot. And the equalizer also heats up slowly and does more damage. See that circle thing? So that's why you need radiators for the equalizer, for example. Any kind of machine guns should use radiators really. But shotguns, they definitely need coolers. I mean, this kind of combo is pretty good because you can shoot pretty long. But yeah, shotguns, I would recommend like, let's say 1 radiator. For a shotgun, we would have like 1 radiator and 2 coolers. While for the machine guns, I would recommend having 2 radiators and 1 cooler. And if you don't have all that, then you can have like 1 and 1. But what I'm trying to say in here, that with machine guns you should have more radiators than coolers, and with shotguns you should have more coolers than radiators. Well, I hope I explained everything and it helps you guys build your dream car. If not, then leave me a comment what you would like to know and I will check into it and see ya next time.